It was a cold winter night in Seattle. Rain hammered against the living room window. Just like it hammered on my heart. My fingers brushed over the thin real estate agreement. The word gift deed felt like a punch. Across from me sat Lily, my sister-in-law. Her hands clasped nervously. She wore a simple white sweater. As if trying to hide something. Her usually clear eyes were darting around. Like a cornered fawn. Liam. She finally managed to whisper. Her voice barely audible. That house, could you just sign it over to me? I didn't answer right away. The rain outside seemed to intensify. Washing away what little calm I had left. I looked up at her. Lily's face was a mix of conflict, shame, and an unspoken expectation. Suddenly I smiled a faint smile. But it made Lily instantly tense. She thought I'd get angry or question her. Maybe even kick her out. Instead I picked up the pen. And with a firm hand. Signed my name on the agreement. Then in another spot. Added the details for a second property. Lily froze completely. Her breathing seemed to stop. A man she thought she was manipulating. Someone she had gently betrayed. Had just given her double the wealth. And more importantly, double the trust. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing a story about kindness and redemption. Please remember to subscribe and follow us. Liam lived in a cozy apartment downtown. A place mellowed by time. On the living room wall hung an enlarged photo. Holding all the light in my life. In that picture my wife Emma was smiling brightly. Gentleness in her eyes and every curve. 2 years ago I married this woman. Who was as warm as sunshine. She was the only bright spot in my life. Emma was thrilled when her younger sister Lily wanted to move to the city for college. She excitedly told me. Liam, Lily's such a sweet kid. Just a bit shy. Let's have her move in with us. So she can focus on her studies, okay? I readily agreed. Back then Lily was fresh from a small southern town. Wearing her oversized high school uniform. And a simple ponytail. She was like a little kitten in a new environment. Always so careful around the house. I remember the first time I picked her up at the station. She stood awkwardly by the exit. Her big eyes lit up when she saw me. I handed her her favorite Starbucks latte. She'd blush and softly say, "Thanks, bro." Emma would always tease. "Liam, you treat Lily better than you treat me." Lily truly worked hard, buried in her studies. Countless nights. The only sounds in the living room were the soft glow of her lamp and the rustle of turning pages. I'd quietly bring her fruit and hot milk, encouraging her, "Don't stress too much. Just do your best." With our warm support, Lily eventually got into a great university here. But life at its sweetest came to a cruel halt. Emma was diagnosed with a rare illness. From a nagging cough to rapid weight loss. In just 1 year my vibrant sunny wife withered like a frost-bitten flower. My world collapsed then. I stayed by her bedside like a zombie, watching her life slowly fade away. Powerless. "Liam, you should eat something." Lily, wearing a simple faded white cotton dress, her eyes red and swollen, handed me a bowl of soup. She stayed with me by the bed. From day to night. Her slender figure in the hospital hallway became the only clear image in my clouded world. As Emma's life ebbed, she used all her remaining strength, clutching my cold hand tightly. Her voice was like a flickering candle flame. Faint but firm. "Liam, Promise me. Take good care, take care of Lily. She's alone. My throat choked up. I nodded heavily. Tears blurred my vision. In that moment I felt a crushing weight on my shoulders. From then on I became the sole pillar of our fractured home. I stopped socializing, stopped going out. Every day I wore that faded grey shirt, smoking endlessly in the gloomy apartment. Lily stayed in the city after graduation. She chose to remain with me instead of moving out. Every evening after work she'd buy groceries and busily cook in the small kitchen. The clatter of pots and pans filled the silence. She'd softly call me Liam instead of brother-in-law. This subtle shift in address brought a faint warmth to my solitude. I'd watch Lily tidy books in the living room, sunlight catching her young profile. Occasionally my heart would stir, but it was quickly suppressed by overwhelming guilt. The turning point came when the redevelopment funds arrived. Because Lily's name was on my property deed, the city compensated us with extra living space, meaning I got an additional apartment. I invited Lily to a food festival that night. We sat at a bustling stall, surrounded by the roar of passing cars. I smiled, telling her we'd hit the jackpot. Lily playfully winked, saying she'd make me pay tonight. But she still ordered frugally. Just a few simple stir-fried veggies. I looked at her clear eyes, a protective feeling rising within me. Just then 2 female colleagues walked by. They teased Lily about being on a date. Lily's face instantly flushed crimson. She awkwardly fiddled with her hair. That youthful shyness made my heart race. But the calm was broken by a phone call. Lily's father in their hometown was suddenly hospitalized. I immediately drove to the hospital. At the ward door I saw her parents. Her mom wore a deep purple silk blouse. Her eyes flashed with a hint of shrewdness when she saw me. She didn't ask about me, but directly told Lily to take me outside. I sensed an odd atmosphere. At a small diner outside the hospital, Lily kept her head down, not looking at me. Her fingers fidgeted nervously. After a long hesitation she finally spoke. Liam, that extra house. Could you just transfer it to my name? My hand holding the chopsticks stiffened. I looked at this girl who had been with me for a year. A sudden chill ran through me. I asked whose idea it was. Lily's face instantly went pale. She softly said her parents wanted her to have security. I didn't answer immediately. I felt a sting of betrayal. So in their eyes I was just an ATM. All this time after Emma passed, I thought Lily's companionship was genuine. Now it seemed she might just be waiting for an opportunity. Lily sobbed softly across from me. Her shoulders trembled slightly. She explained she didn't want it, but her parents kept pressuring her on the phone. I looked at her swollen red eyes. A fierce conflict raged within me. I remembered Emma's dying wish. Remembered my own years of enduring. I was used to giving all my kindness to others, forgetting to save some dignity for myself. I sat in silence at the diner for a long time. Outside the window the grey Seattle sky. Lily tried to reach for my arm. I instinctively pulled away. That physical rejection made Lily flinch. She realized she might have lost my trust. The next few days we were in a cold war. I still wore that grey shirt at home, but I looked even more gaunt and worn. Late at night I lit cigarette after cigarette. Watching the city lights, feeling the world was absurd. Lily cried all night in her room. She tried to apologize at the breakfast table, but I only responded politely. That politeness was more despairing than any argument. Lily started cleaning frantically. She scrubbed every corner of the house until it shined. She tried to use diligence to atone for her guilt. But the crack in my heart had already formed. I began to ponder the nature of this relationship. Was it the continuation of family bonds? Or a mercenary arrangement? A week later I asked Lily to meet me at a lawyer's office. Lily wore a black business suit. Looking mature but incredibly nervous. She thought I was going to reject her request. Even prepared to be kicked out of the house. I pushed 2 agreements toward her. Lily looked down and was completely stunned. Not just the house we had discussed. I had also given her another investment property. I calmly said, "This is for your dowry." Since Emma was gone, I hoped Lily could be as happy as Emma. Lily suddenly looked up. Tears streamed down her face onto the agreements. She had never imagined I would be so generous. This kindness beyond logic instantly shattered all her defenses. She remembered her parents' greed on the phone. Contrasting it with my gentle demeanor now, she felt a profound shame. Lily suddenly stood up and hugged me tightly. She sobbed uncontrollably in my arms, whispering "I'm so sorry" over and over. I felt the girls trembling in my embrace. The ice in my heart melted at that moment. I gently patted her back, telling her she didn't need to feel pressured. In that instant all the calculations vanished, replaced by pure redemption. As Lily walked out of the lawyer's office, she clutched the 2 agreements tightly to her chest. Her gaze at me had changed. No longer dependent or guilty, but filled with deep admiration and adoration. We returned to that home full of memories. Lily was no longer that timid little girl. She began to proactively take care of me. She'd prepare nutritious dinners and hand me a hot tea when I came home late from work. One evening in the living room, Lily softly asked if I still remembered Emma. I nodded, saying she'd always be in my heart. But now I wanted to try and welcome new sunshine. Lily bravely took my hand. She whispered in my ear, "I want to walk the rest of this path with you." I looked into her radiant eyes. In that moment I decided to let go of the past. We kissed in the gentle Seattle drizzle. It was a ritual to bid farewell to the past and embrace the future. A year later we had a simple wedding. No lavish ceremony, just close family and friends. Lily wore a pure white lace wedding dress, beautiful like an unreal dream. Soon after our daughter was born. I named her Lily after her mother, and the flower that symbolizes new beginnings, meaning the first plum blossom after a harsh winter. I finally put away that grey linen shirt. I wore a warm camel-colored knit sweater. Walking in the sunny park with our baby, I looked at my wife and child beside me, marveling at how magical life could be. If you are willing to give light to others, they will eventually become your sun. I ended with a tender embrace, holding all our happiness close. Many times we're used to playing games in relationships, calculating who gives more, who gets more. But true wisdom is daring to be generous, even when the other person is calculating, giving more than expected. This isn't simple compromise, but a higher form of emotional counterattack. It can make greedy people feel ashamed, and lonely people find belonging. In this materialistic age, houses and money can buy companionship, but not deep soulful connection. Cherish those who stay with you in your lowest moments. And remember to treat the world with pure kindness. Because kindness always comes full circle, returning to you in unexpected ways. Do you think material things are the foundation of a relationship? Or is spiritual connection more important? Share your stories in the comments below. In this fast-paced world, we're used to calculating gains and losses in every relationship, believing that controlling the stakes means controlling love. But in truth, humanity's greatest power isn't calculation. It's the ultimate tolerance that says, I know you're calculating, but I choose to give anyway. This tolerance isn't weakness, but a spiritual nobility. It can instantly break through the other person's defenses, transforming a game of interests into a redemption of souls. When you're willing to give someone an unexpected way out, they might just truly see your heart.